just prepared his second project from Competent Communicator Manual, and it's called How to Worry About All.
No.
How to start worrying about all. That's it. Please welcome.
How to start worrying about AI. There is a saying, when you know less, you sleep better. I will try to make sure that each one of you will know a little bit more at the end of this presentation.
Thank you.
What do you think is the biggest threat to humanity in 21st century?
Internet.
AI. Women.
I would like to convince you in the next 7 minutes that it is in fact the rise of artificial intelligence that is the biggest threat. What is an AI or artificial intelligence? Is a human created device for solving problems. And researchers divide AIs into 3 levels based on their competency. The first, and I will talk about each one in turn. So, the first is artificial narrow intelligence. Second one is artificial general intelligence or human level AI. And the third one, artificial super intelligence. Artificial narrow intelligence is a set of algorithms that solve a specific problem, and they are peculiar to a particular domain. But in that domain, even though they are not as flexible as human minds, they can have superhuman performance. For example, we already have narrow artificial intelligence for quite some time. If you take calculator, for example, calculators are far surpass abilities for calculate arithmetic and scientific equations better than any humans alive. Artificial intelligences beat the games each year that have never been beaten before. In 1997, Harry Kasparov lost to the Deep Blue, which made the news. After that, there was IBM Watson, which played Jeopardy better than any human before. Then we had AlphaGo, which shocked everybody. No one thought it was possible. It beat the best players in the world in the game of Go. Go is such a complex game that we think that it's the most complex board game ever played by humans, ever. And just recently, in 2017, poker has been beaten also. Yes, but it's not only games. Artificial intelligence also counts for your job also. Right now, traders are traders in the foreign brokers are mostly artificial intelligences. The autopilots in the planes, they can land the plane safely, and even it's legally required in some countries that you don't allow humans to land the plane because it's that much safer. World of transportation is going to be changed forever, and millions of people will be out of job when autonomous driving vehicles will take on the roads, and it's near future. Tesla already has some prototypes on road. So, and these systems, they don't have to be genius or perfect. They just have to be a little bit better than humans to replace us. And given the financial incentives to be better than competition, governments and companies are all trying their hardest to make those narrow artificial intelligence better, smarter every day. And now we come to general artificial intelligence, or human level. Given that no catastrophic cataclysm happens that wipes out all technological progress, we will eventually reach the level of human intelligence. And when that happens, it will make sense to just put this machine to work on the intellectual work that previously human did, which would be creating artificial intelligences. You can see the problem here. As soon as machine starts improving itself, it will become smarter. And the smarter it gets, the speed with which it becomes smarter increases. It's exponential growth, and so-called intelligence explosion, which is very big risk. Superintelligence. Superintelligence is something so far beyond our comprehension that for all intents and purposes, it will be all-powerful. Let's imagine a paperclip company that wants to make an artificial intelligence that will make as much paperclips as possible. And they will allow this artificial intelligence to improve itself. Pretty soon, artificial intelligence will understand that, well, in order to make the maximum amount of paperclips possible, I will have to turn the earth core, which is metal, into paperclips. Well, humans would not like that one bit, so I have to remove them too. And because it's so much smarter than we are, we cannot do anything about that if it decides that. So we have to build in our human values inside the system, even before it starts improving itself. Otherwise, it's game over. So the point is that any slight deviation of super intelligent machines from our human values will be catastrophic, but for us, not for them. They will just happily keep on making those paperclips. Well, it is also a very big problem because actually humans don't know and cannot agree what their values are. Have you tried talking to someone who is about euthanasia recently? I guess and the problem is we have to decide now because most scientists agree that we'll reach the level of general artificial intelligence by 1950. So we have to do philosophy on a deadline. I'd like you to join Elon Musk and worry with him about artificial intelligence when he says, I do hope that we are not just biological bootloader for digital superintelligence, but it's increasingly less likely. Thank you very much.
Enjoy speeches of Andriy Bas. He told us about Hugo. He told us recently about goal setting and what kills our goals. And I'm just looking forward to his next project, to his next speech. It's project number 5. I also wonder whether Andriy also learns while preparing speeches what kind of dances are in those countries he speaks about. But anyway, we're about to hear a speech, The Unique Travel Guide to London by Andriy Bas. Please welcome.
Welcome, dear ladies and gentlemen. Every city has two faces, the tourist trap face and the real face. On the internet you can find a bunch of guides how to visit a city in one day. But be careful, it's usually a tourist trap. I want to share with you a unique tourist guide, how to get an unforgettable experience in London in just 10 hours. Tested myself. Works. I was on the business trip to Lisbon, and I thought it is too simple to go home directly. So I decided to have some adventures and searched for the tickets Lisbon, Copenhagen, Kiev, and found the cheap alternative with a transit flight through London. Okay, I thought the stop is only for 2 hours, And I read on the internet that I don't need a visa for the transit flight, so I decided to take it. In a hurry, I didn't notice a small, tiny philosophical sentence at the bottom of the ticket. The visa might be required. Because who reads the boring instructions, right? With a big smile on my face, I was walking towards the passport control. The first strange thing I noticed was a big, pompous sign right after the airplane, the UK border. Strange, I thought. I'm not supposed to cross the border during the transit flight. Anyway, I gave my passport to the emotionless lady at the passport control. Soon she started flipping pages like she was looking for the private key to the biggest Bitcoin wallet on the planet. "Where's your visa?" she asked. "I don't have a visa. I thought for the transit flight I can pass without it." Her next words struck me as a lightning. "I'll check, but I'm pretty sure you need a visa." I still couldn't believe it. I thought it's some kind of a joke or misunderstanding. In a few minutes she arrived with an officer and announced the verdict. Yes, it is possible to stay in the UK for the 24 hours to make a transit flight, under certain conditions. Among the conditions is to have the European passport, the US passport, or the valid US visa, or a bunch of other conditions that you can meet. And you know what? There was no single word about a Ukrainian student with an unhealthy attraction to Danish hygge. And you know what it meant for me? That I was an illegal immigrant without the right to be there. And you know what the authorities do with such people? Yes, I was arrested.
Oh my God.
That day I recalled all the movies I thought about cops. They took away all my belongings. I was left with nothing. They searched through my pockets and they even checked my shoes from the inside. I was left in a white room where the tables and the chairs were welded to the floor. I assumed they interrogated criminals in that room. First I was worrying and checked my time every minute or so, hoping it would get resolved somehow and I'd fly to Copenhagen. How naive I was to underestimate the abilities of British bureaucrats to slow down all the processes and print documents. Every half an hour or so, the officer arrived, asked me some questions, recorded them, and printed me new and new documents to sign. What really saved me was my previous business trip. I was very tired, and between the visits of the officer, I simply, as I was sitting on the chair, I just fell asleep there and slept most of the time. After all the interrogations and the questions, I was put in another waiting room. It was already too late, and I was supposed to be in Copenhagen, and my friends were there and probably worrying about me. The officers kindly offered me to make a phone call. I recalled all the phone numbers I knew by heart. The total sum was 1, my own, of course. So the phone wasn't very helpful, but it was still pretty nice and was alone in the room with lots of books to read. Soon the officers brought 2 big, dark, suspicious guys. They looked like true criminals. I thought it was a moment I couldn't miss. When they sat down, I collected all my wit, come closer to them, and asked like a true gangster, "Yo man, what are you here for?" I always wanted to do that. They appeared to be not very worthy though. The only thing I discovered, they were Romanians who earned money by doing cigarette trafficking for years and now were caught due to bad luck. Another person that made the waiting more interesting was a student from Albania who was exactly in the same position as I were. He wanted to go to Stockholm and didn't even know the plane stops in Copenhagen. The officers later shared with me that they have such cases every day. So my friend, it's a unique chance for you to repeat the experience if you want. After all the day being imprisoned, I was sent back to Lisbon. The officers had to obey the rules and send me exactly where I came from. When I received the plane ticket, for free by the way, I understood that not only the bus tickets in Ukraine can be handwritten, but the plane ticket in London can be handwritten as well. It's even better than the postcard from London. In the evening when I finally arrived to Portugal, The first message I wrote to my friend was, I forgot to buy souvenirs in Lisbon, so I returned back. Due to this funny, peculiar, unique incidences, I received even more adventure than I could hope for, so that I could relax, go to Copenhagen, and enjoy the hygge. But how did I get to Denmark? Well, that's a topic for another story. Thank you very much.
We learned math.
I will put it forward. This is the complete name of my speech, how you can use math theories to apply it to the real world problems. And before I start, I want to ask you guys, how would you call your social life in a broad sense? Or this medium in a broad sense? What is our life? Okay, it's a rhetorical question, because the answer is you can look at it as a game. So I'm playing a game, giving a speech to you, which is part of a bigger game of this meeting, which is part of even bigger game. And in other words, any social interactions which happen according to the certain rule is a game. And your work is a game, and everything you're involved in is you can conceptualize or see as a game. And from this perspective, if you look at the game theory, which I'm talking to speak about today, it's not just helpful, but it's really ubiquitous. There are some caveats though. First thing is that the number of plays we are playing, the complexity of them is immense. We can comprehend it, and that's why we use all sort of emotional judgments, ethical rules, intuition to do our decision making. The second one is that the rules are not very clearly defined in a different situation. And third one, and the worst probably of all, is that people are not act rationally as you expect, as game theory expects of them. They do all sorts of stupid things. And having this all in mind, I'm still going to show you that you can use game theory in your everyday life, and it can be helpful. I'll tell you a couple of stories. The first one happened in my climbing gym. Some of you know I own one, and this was some client forgot an expensive camera, and it was found, and then it was stolen before owner showed up to pick it up. I had one suspect, but in personal conversation, let's call him Mr. X, denied, and oh, how can you see it? So I was kind of a bit desperate, because owner is calling me every couple of hours. What I did, I framed this situation in game theory setting. And here we come into one of the big and foundational concepts of a game theory, payoff matrix. This is a structured analysis of outcomes which could be generated by the game. So my suspect, he has two options, deny or confess, and then there are my outcomes, and you are not supposed to read it, so just believe me by heart. The idea, simply believe me that in the settings we were working, his optimal strategy was always deny. What should I do? I had to change his payoffs. I wrote him 2 emails. First email contained all sort of threats. Threats of police, I will call your mom, I will know, you are fired, I don't trust you anymore. So and time is ticking. The main thing, time is ticking, and your situation is getting worse and worse and worse every second. I was not sure that he is guilty, but again, I was modifying his payoffs matrix. The second one, I gave him 1 hour to reflect on first email, and then wrote the second one. So being the kind person that I am, huge big heart, which I can, barely get into my chest, and even bigger soul, and all forgiven like Jesus Christ himself, I can imagine that someone can make mistake. It happens. Can slip from the right way, and if this someone sincerely confess, that I can not only keep it secret, I can continue working with such person in some way. So what I've done, I changed his payoffs. And the game we are playing here is called simultaneous game with incomplete information, with asymmetric information. So I was able to use asymmetry of information that he doesn't know what I know, and I
know what he doesn't know.
Right. So to change his perspective, and his payoffs are slightly different now. And for him, the optimal strategy is to confess. And he called me in an hour and asked for a meeting in the park, and I understand that I solved it. So lesson from this story is that understanding your payoffs is not always easy. It's a tricky one, but once you understand, you can control the situation. Second story happened to my friend. We had a lunch together, and she told me, before I came to you, I've spoken to my American boyfriend. I told him that I'm going to meet you, and he started saying me all sorts of weird things, like, don't you mind if I meet someone, because I'm so lonely here, so far away. What a nonsense. Why he is even telling me this if I cannot control him 1,000 miles away? And here we come into the second portion of game theory concepts. I told her, your friend is signaling something to you. He's making a promise that if he thinks that you cheat him, he will cheat you. There are all sorts of different signals which are intended to modify the payoffs of your counterpart in the game. But the most powerful are threat and promise. Threat costs you nothing. You just threaten someone. Don't do this because I do something. Promise costs you something. And the business promise is when monopoly say, if you try to enter this market, I will cut the prices by half. It's a promise. But all of this is founded on credibility. Because in my previous example, I was bluffing. I could not execute all my threats. But my word was credible enough, so that my counterpart understood it. So lesson is that build your reputation so you are credible for the situation, and use threats and promises to manipulate. And third one is of course about prisoner's dilemma. Who is aware? Who understands this concept of prisoner's dilemma? Quite a few. Very briefly, two criminals are interrogated separately, and for both of them, it's better to keep silence, but their optimal strategy is to confess. And I was in my consulting job once validating if some company have to pay some advertising campaign in order to enter e-commerce market. I looked at the data of competitors, their advertisement spendings and their market share. They realized that they are not changing substantially. They paid millions, but just to maintain a status quo. And I recall the story when American tobacco companies were lobbying ban on advertising of tobacco products, which sounds strange and counterintuitive. Why would they do this? But essentially, they want to move from here to here. They have no trust to each other, and everyone was advertising. But if government ban it, then all the money they spend recently go directly into profits. And also I recommended them, don't do this. Don't try to spend money on that advertising, because you are going to be locked forever in this prisoner's dilemma. You will eventually start throwing good money after bad, and the reality confirmed that I was right. All right. So what we have as a conclusion, your next steps. Stanford course. You can, by the way, make a photo of this page. It's a classic now. It's it's amazing. The book, I have the book, if you wish I will share it. But if you are, I don't know, busy or lazy or not passionate enough, just go and play this game. It has a lot of things. In Prisoner's Dilemma, again, one important thing, there is immense depth beyond this. I explained it in simplest possible terms, so you would like to explore it using this game. And now we have time for questions, if you have any.
If I may, just, you know, I read a little bit about the theory, but well, at least as Wikipedia goes, that the real life is such complex, so therefore these prisoners, they would not only deny or confess, they might use other tactics, you know, kind of getting into a certain, you know, agreeing on certain middle ground and stuff like that. So what they say, in fact, that in theory it all looks fine, but this pure situation where it could be applied directly are very rare.
Absolutely, because model is always a simplification of reality. But we still use model because we cannot grasp absolute complexity of our life. So we use model to simplify it, and I try to show that it still works. And also with this game, you can learn about different strategies you can use in this prisoner dilemma games and how they interact and how they work together. You have one.
Yeah.
You, Andrei, go ahead.
It sounds very nice in theory again, but it is the problem I see. It is very logical. But the human are so illogical creatures. Like when the market falls, everyone says, "Oh, don't sell," but everyone sells like crazy. How to make people use it in the real world?
You know, you will not receive a Nobel Prize for this, because the last one Nobel Prizes were taken for stating exactly this, that people are not rational, right? And it's a big thing, it's a big caveat, but there are a couple of limitations. The first one is that organizations tend to be more or less rational, because when a lot of people come together, they incline to, at least in our value frame, incline to use rationality as a main value frame they use. The second thing is that there is limited possibility of using irrationality and working with irrationality, which is a slightly different point which Thaler addressed in his last book about architecture of choice and how you push people towards more optimal, more rational choices and all this kind of things. But the problem exists, it cannot be completely addressed, but there are halfway methods to do this.
I'd like to apply this to Ukraine. One of the continual disappointments is that every new face that shows up in Ukrainian politics, we have hope. Poroshenko, Yatsenyuk, Kolomoisky, you say, these guys are rich enough, they don't need to steal anymore. And yet, they all disappoint us. I think that there's something of Krapka, that they can't escape it, and I think it's a game theory problem. What do you say?
Yes, it is game theory problem, but in every model, in every situation, when it is already stationary, like Markov process, you need the interaction from outside in order to change the rule or change the ratios. And this is what we are getting now, because we all understand that Ukraine is essentially pushed and managed from outside to try to change this stationary political corruption situation. And we appreciate it, so maybe they succeed as we as the voters cannot influence it in a proper way. Who else?
I can just comment your last statement. Have you heard it? It's actually connected to the previous speech we wrote about artificial intelligence. Recently I read in the news that there is some kind of artificial intelligence, some robot who was discussing. He was like shaped as a beautiful woman, and she was discussed some issues, and actually she crashed She crashed after the question about how to fight Ukrainian corruption. This is not very simple.
So we asked this question too early. So maybe when we were aligned, in our beds connected to the matrix, maybe it's a good time when
No, but the fun
computation possibility already there.
the fun is, life is more complex. Yesterday it was refuted that this was a fake news. I mean, so at least again you have two possibilities. Somebody's cheating more or less.
We understood this. Okay, I guess that's it for our session, and thank you very much.
Jobs, yeah. Not Steve Jobs, but just Jobs. Let's imagine us doing unusual for us job. And who knows, maybe we will find your secret hidden talents. That's all. Let's start. The first question is, imagine you are the head of Kiev Автодор. The municipal authority responsible for roads repair in Kiev. Summing up the results of the year, for example, 2017. Let's give us some of your achievements, one or more. Are there any volunteers? You're welcome, Vladimir.
Can you repeat topic? The last one.
Yeah.
Some of my achievements as a key of the door.
As a head of Kiev.
Okay, that I will have in a year if I will get this job, yeah?
No. The year ended. And you need just to sum up the results of last year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good day. I am head of Kiev of the door now, and I want to tell you about our achievements for the year. As you know, there are two problems with our situation with roads. That are stupid persons and robots. Okay, we tried to solve this problem, and we already mastered to delete one problem: roads. So no roads, no problems. As you can see, progress is amazing. There are almost half of roads were destroyed this year. There are big bumps, and these bumps get some water. Water turned into ice. Ice then destroy roads more and more. So in a few years we will not have, there will be no roads. So this problem will be solved absolutely and increasingly interesting way. You know, it's absolutely new idea to solve this problem because in other parts of world, for example in Europe or United States, there are no such idea. They master their roads in old ways. They use tractors, use some workforce, use some materials, and our absolutely amazing approach is to use simply water and sand around roads to destroy them. Then we shall do something with people, but it will be next year. Thank you very much.
Desert Island. What would you say to your client to persuade him that is the best options he ever had? Are there any volunteers? Come on. You're welcome, Julie.
No idea about the 7th tours to deserted island, but I will talk about roads. So, this is the real name of Kiev Автодор cat, and actually this is like we world. We don't have all those people, they are just stealing money. But just think about Kiev Автодор. This year they actually have built 300 kilometers of roads in Kiev. Have you known about this figure? 300 kilometers they have repaired. Just think about Бульвар Дружбы Народов, about Набережная, then Большая Окружная, and a lot of other big roads were actually repaired. And this was a very good example of the job. That was actually promise, the political promise of mayor of Kiev, Klitschko. So he was pushing me because I needed to do it, and we actually did it. And what has really changed in this area? First of all, it used to be that we actually did the job, and then we controlled ourselves. Like, was it a good job? Yeah, it was a good job. So okay. So right now the system has changed, because we just hire subcontractors, and those contractors, they just do the job and we control them. And also we need some guarantee. So we have a written contracts, and if something is wrong with those roads, they will repair it for their own money. So this is what has changed in actually past a couple of years. So we still have problems. We have a lot of roads that hasn't been repaired for years. But we do our job, and we have a very specific result in 12-17. It's 300 kilometers of roads repaired in Kiev.
Just describe your first working day in this role. Are there any volunteers? Would you like to answer this question? You're welcome. The both of you. Okay.
More peer pressure.
Would you like to answer this question? Please, you're welcome.
Can you? Yes, come on.
Let's try. I'm sure you will answer this question very great.
Okay, can you repeat, please?
Imagine that you became the boss of your boss, just for one day. Describe this first working day in this role, the boss of your boss.
Okay, I will try. So first, I'm the boss, yes, and I want to set meeting of all the workers which work in our company. And first, I want to change the time when the people come to work, because now it's not comfortable at all. So it can be flexible schedule of work, so the people can come at work wherever they want. So they will have just card, and they must work 8 hours per day. What? 6 is better. So it doesn't matter when you come to work, you must work 8 hours per day. So some people can come at 8, at 9 and finish their work at 6 or at 7. It depends on their needs and what they want to do in the evening. It can be helpful for some people, because now we're faced with situations when we don't have enough time to which we have after work, because some courses or some meetings start at 6, 7, but our work finished at 7 p.m. So sometimes we don't have enough time for our private life. So it's the first step. And what else? I don't know what to tell else.
Will you fire the boss or not?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So, but soon we can. What?
Call him for a conversation.
About salary.
And also it can be flexible. I don't know, lunch, because some companies have fixed time for lunch, and it's not comfortable. So we can change all of this. Thank you.
A date expert. Date, yeah.
Dating.
Just give us some pieces of advice how to organize the best date. Could you please answer this question? Your name is Andrei, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
How to organize the best date? Tell us, please.
Okay. Actually, I have not any one idea now, and for me, it's my English is not so good. I understand this when I hearing you all, yes. And for me, it's more simple to ask maybe about desert island.
Okay.
What about after door? Yes. Okay. Dating expert.
So, what question?
I don't know. I have any idea, and I try to say.
You need to answer the question. Just one question from all this.
Okay, I try speak about dating. Because I man, maybe I try to speak for woman. Yeah. It's maybe I don't know what I say now, yes, but I try to organize date. First, it's interest experience in my life. I've been on the event for women. Its name something like "Why I So Stupid." It's been 50 women and only one I. Interest experience. I go this place for. Okay, it's not answer. First, woman can ответственность. Responsible. Women have a power, but most quantity of women not use this. They just look good and they go on the date and they try to. They not try. They just spend the time, yes, and look what men to do or something else. But if woman if woman use his power and responsible for the date result, they make they can crazy, very very
to doing things right. But there are many things you can do wrong. So the first thing to know about dating is that women don't know what they like, but they do know what they don't like. So let me give you a short list of things that they don't like. First of all, don't waste money on a fast car. I've had a couple of fast cars. And you know what? You go to a bar, you're sitting around looking for girls to chat up, and the guys say, "Oh, that's a nice car you have out there. Oh, let's go outside. Open the hood. Oh, what kind of motor do they have?" And the girls are sitting, "Scooch, no." So don't waste your money on a car. Another thing don't do is don't go to a dating agency. Because when you go to a dating agency as a guy, you have loser written in neon on your forehead. The girls who go to dating agencies, I'm afraid to say, are not, they're desperate. Nothing else has worked for them. And they say, "Oh God, I'll go and I'll meet an American from miles away who has nothing better to do either, and we'll get together." I did this a couple of times. I was doing everything. Lucy can talk about it. And absolutely not what you want to do. So, in general, the advice would be, you got to be yourself and hope for the best, and take Vitali's technique. Don't show awe. Don't be scared of it. Just be yourself, and that's the best dating technique I can recommend.
You poor in this topic, and yes, but Stas from the very first moment he made me even more confused and felt that I am not professional in this topic, because he started with too many scientific words. He mentions that there are 3 types of artificial intelligence, super intelligence, and so it makes me stressed a lot. What I would recommend immediately from the beginning to start, that like on the date, the introduction, it should be introduction, soft, mind, calm. So you can provide such anecdote, for example, to make us relaxed and to make more easily to come into the topic. Then, what I mentioned, what I noticed that I see that you felt and you like this topic, you have a lot of experience to share with us. I felt that you wanted to share with us. But you have chosen a lot of those examples, and there were a lot of chunks, and you jumped from one to another, poker, Kasparov, and for me it was very difficult also to jump with them and to see the logic. That is why I recommend you to choose more, to choose less examples and to give them more in details. And in your story, what I missed emotions. And I think it also made difficult for you to follow these transitions, because you remembered them from your memory. If you followed your personal emotions, and if you would add your personal story into this your project, it would be more easily for you, and you provide us more emotions, and it would be more relaxed and enjoyable. Overall, I want to say that you did a great job. It is your second project, you are moving on, and I like how you overcome all your nervousness and how you confidently delivered your second project, so I am looking forward for your next speeches.
Had the name of illustrating the purpose of your speech with your gestures, your body movement, and your facial expressions. So today you presented your personal story in a very humorous, very enthusiastic, very natural manner, and what I always enjoy about your speeches, you are really very open person and very sincere in your conveying your message. And you were right from the start, you established an eye contact with all of the guests and members of the club, and you kept the attention while presenting your story. That is very good. Also, you used wide gestures with your hands when speaking about this or that kind of part of your story. You also played out the dialogue with the immigration officer at the airport and also with the gangsters, the Romanian smugglers, which also helped us to visualize the story. And that was really done very great. Also, you moved to the chair and you sat and showed us that you were sleeping, and this is also was done on purpose, and thank you for that. Also, in regards to the preparation, it was fluent. It was clearly visible that you have rehearsed your speech many times, or you're just a natural born speaker. And you had an introduction, body, and conclusion to your speech, which is really showing us that you have learned everything from the previous project that you have done. What else? What I would just one small thing. Not one small thing. What helped you to enhance your illustration of this story? Not only gestures, but you also showed us your ticket. It was like the proof of your getting to London and getting arrested. That also was a great move in presenting your story. And what else? Just one small recommendation. you definitely used the space, you were establishing eye contact with all the audience, but however in some points of your presentation you could move closer to the audience. You could just speak out the story, and you could do everything like that that you did, but you could also occupy more space. But I guess that this will come to you naturally in the next project. So thank you very much, and as I have promised, I will not be writing any bad things in your manual. So this is everything here is just great ticks.
One could say that Ivan has his peculiarities. Here's an inside joke. Ray Kurzweil would say he has his singularities. You're supposed to laugh. Two people are supposed to laugh. You do things your own way, and it's interesting how it works. So let's talk about what worked and what didn't work in this presentation. What worked was that you built very good structure. You know your subject extremely well, so that worked. What didn't work too well was your flip charts. And that's one of the things I've complimented in your previous evaluations is your use of flip charts was superb and it's unusual. But today they didn't work terribly well for the following reasons. They're a little bit small for everybody to read, and they were here, which meant that our tour couldn't see them. You knew that people couldn't read your first flip chart, and so you talked to it in a way that said, the information's here, and I know you can't read it, so I'm going to explain it, which worked on the first flip chart. But when you got further, it sort of petered out. The fact that we couldn't read them turned out to be a handicap as we got further along. The other criticism that I will offer is that you expected too much knowledge on the part of the audience. You asked the question, who's familiar with game theory, but you didn't go into what is game theory. Now, there's a colorful story that I'll tell right now. What is game theory? This was John Nash, the guy who invented game theory, the subject of a book, A Beautiful Mind. He had a bit of game theory himself. Said that when you go into a bar to meet girls, you know that everybody in the bar is going to be hitting on the most beautiful girl. Game theory is hit on the second most beautiful girl. She's not getting the attention. And so you will still do better than you should by not shooting for the top. That's game theory. So I think that an example like that of what is game theory would have been good, and the prisoner's dilemma might have been a good one to start with. Prisoner's dilemma probably needed a little bit more explanation than you gave it, because it may not be totally familiar to everybody. I thought that your question and answer was handled very, very well in every particular, except you didn't answer the question of Ukrainian corruption. You have no solutions to the big crowd. But aside from that, I thought it was wonderful. I really appreciate your speeches because you are just so well informed, and you are so natural and singular in your presentation. Madam Toastmaster.
On his knee, stretched his arm, and I'm like, oh God. And then he looked in my eye and said, how do you like my eye contact? And I'm like, that was close. So the roast is a bit of this, even worse. But in this particular project, there was supposed to be a friendly roaster at a farewell party, anniversary, or any other gathering of people where you have the distinguished host or somebody who is celebrated by these people. So therefore, definitely these kind of jokes would not work. What would work is exactly what Vera did, self-deprecating. So in fact, she was roasting herself. Yeah. She was telling how this and that in a way that she actually made the Vitaly shine. But one simple exception, this Troyeshina gang will stay in my mind forever. So the point is that The roast was perfect. It was really impeccable. I liked everything. I liked the stage usage. I liked the way you presented. I liked everything, but two things which should be improved. Number one, too fast. I'm too fast myself. But there, you remember, that's the farewell party. Everybody is sitting and eating, most probably, or drinking. Do they pay attention to the fast pacing, flow of words which you're kind of delivering to them? No. So the solution could be you try to slow down, and instead of 3 or 4 stories you presented in your speech, you concentrate on 2. How to figure out how many stories? Very simple. Time yourself before. So you try to deliver the same speech rehearsal, then you time yourself up, and you see if you really want to cram everything in these 5 minutes you have and have too many words, it's too much. Reduce the number of stories, but deliver them the way that you will definitely have that eye contact. I didn't get that much of that because you were, rushing through. And play it in a way that the public is involved as well. Remember, it's farewell party, whatever occasion, so they're out there too. So ask questions and get them, out of their clam, to be with you and be celebrated. And I'm sure that you would have gotten many, many more laughs if you did exactly this. A bit slower, better work with the audience, and celebrating the distinguished person who was supposed to be roasted. This was done brilliantly.